I won't tell much of her story because she's so great at it. So without further ado, Lynette Shaw.
Thank you, my friends. I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to be able to be here because I was persecuted by federal agents for over 20 years because I invented the licensed dispensary system in a social experiment, first in the world. Actually, I had the first license in history to legally sell marijuana. And in 1998. In 1997, and 6 months later in 1998, President Bill Clinton sued me in federal civil court, and I fought the feds for 19 years because I was the test case to stop the cannabis industry. And it was extremely essential that I stood up and fight for everybody, because every time we went to court, which is hundreds and hundreds of hearings, and there'd be, 100 squad, like the riot squad with the heavy duty, there's like, they're all 10 feet tall and they're all dressed to kill me. And they'd be surrounding the courtroom and out in the hall and down in front where the protesters were for my case. And so I had to go in and run the gauntlet past all the, these big dudes, me, over marijuana. But I'm from the first wave of the revolution. I met Jack Herer in 1990, and I had gotten busted because I was going to go to jail for pot. And I didn't really know I was using marijuana medically, but I knew I had to have it, and I was going to deal it, because I had to have some pot, damn it. And I got busted, and then I met Jack, and then Jack sent me to Dennis Perone, and when I got out of jail for pot, I became their secretary. So I was Dennis Perone and Jack Herer's secretary for 5 years, and they kind of like switched me back and forth between Northern and Southern California, because we had to avoid the agents too. So the agents been on my butt for a long time, but not anymore, because when I won in 2016, I have federal judges' protective orders. And this counts for me, and this counts for all of you. I'm ordered by the federal judge to sell and distribute marijuana under state law without interference from the DOJ, period. And this protects all of us. And so what I'm seeing here, I'm so inspired, is I'm your godmother, and you are all my godchildren. And this is the outcropping. This is my brainchild gone wild. I gotta take a little bit of credit here. But I'm looking at everybody, and it's so healthy. And we're here in the middle of a giant field that needs us. And here we are. And I'm just so thrilled and honored to be able to talk story. I've been coming here to Maui since 1976. I was a hippie kid in the streets playing music, busking in front of the Blue Macs when Fleetwood Mac was here. I was one of those kids. And I've always loved Maui, and I always had a spiritual connection. I've always said, this is the home of my soul. I wasn't able to come here for 20 years. And I came back, and I made good friends. And I got a lot of spiritual strength from being in Maui. The late Reverend Jim Kimball ordained me as a priest into the Religion of Jesus Church because I'm a cannabis believer. And that helped me get people out of jail because I was their reverend minister. And that helped me marry people in jail for pot. They wanted to get married so the wife could, do business for them because they were in jail for pot, so I could marry them through the glass. So that's what it took. Revolution is messy. Revolution is scary. Revolution is not fair until you win. And then when you win, they can't believe that they lost. And there's a saying from The Art of War thousands of years ago in China. It's a very important thing to remember, that the greatest atrocities are always committed at the end of every war. They're not done with us yet, but we won. And they can't stand it that we won, but we won. And now the federal judge has ordered all the DEA agents off of everybody, because if they can't touch me, they can't touch you. So what are they going to do? They're going to spread propaganda. They're going to run candidates that are against us. They're not going to give up that ghost while they still have money and they still believe that they're righteous. And they may be very misled. They may believe the propaganda that's spouting out of their mouth. And it's a religious fervor. But we have won. And that's the important part, is to remember that. And also to remember that the price of freedom and liberty is eternal vigilance. And this is what I'm seeing here is, you've got all the pieces of the puzzle here. It's just wonderful. you have a bunch of really great people that are talking to each other, even though we're all coming up out of the underground. Like, I haven't been able to do public speaking for 5 years because I would bring the agents with me if I came here. And that would place everybody in danger. So I was a danger to our community, our people. I could not be with the people that I love, and that is my only family. Because I was revolutionary, I could never marry. Because I was a revolutionary, I could never have children, just because they could take my children. But what I birthed was a dispensary system, and that's my baby. You know, and I had to defend my baby with my life. They took away all my Social Security money. They almost got my house. I saved that too. And I have hella good lawyers, and it was very, very hard to do. Very hard to do. But look what we got. You know? Look what we got. Look at this. You know, you'll figure it out. Maybe one thing I would like to see I'd like to see somebody here registering voters from all 5 islands, and maybe do a little pep talk about registering voters and organizing those votes. I mean, I don't belong to any party anymore. In 2006, I ran for the Libertarian Party. I was a lieutenant governor, and I got to talk on national television about legalizing marijuana in 2006. And Willie endorsed me, yeah. And I had a wild year. Even Stephen Colbert satirized me on his show. And I've been made fun of by the best of it. And I broke the record for the Libertarian Party because 150,000 people thought that marijuana, peace, not war, spoke to their hearts. And that's what I've always said, was marijuana, peace, not war. We're done with the marijuana war. We're done with the hemp war. We're done with our people being thrown into jail. Now, they haven't figured it out in California yet, but under Prop 64, 4,500 prisoners were released. 4,500 prisoners were released in California. And they screwed everything else up. But 4,500 of our people were set free when the people legalized recreational in California. Now, they promptly screwed everything up. The collective system was working well. We almost got rid of the black market. And then they came in with excessive regulation, excessive taxation, excessive oversight, excessive paperwork, excessive licensing fees, astronomical. So everybody went to the black market. The black market's 10,000 times stronger than it was 1 year ago in California. The price of pot in the street is half of what we can possibly get into the shelves of the licensed dispensaries. And the small businesses are going under. So they failed in California. I was lucky enough to find a decent small corporate sponsor. I'm here today because of my partners. And I had to sell part of my hard-fought business to survive. But I was lucky enough, and I was persistent enough to find the right people, and I'm blessed. And I'm here with you all for the weekend, and that's where I hope to continue to be able to consult and give some advice and guidance, because I'm so excited about what I've found here. You know, I came here because, Lily, bless your heart, it's all your fault. So, Lynette, you got to come to this thing, and I'll get you set up for a speaker. Well, I'm pretty good at that. I was trained by the best, you know, but I can see that I've got the right people with me. You are my people, and this is why I fought so damn hard. And I was followed around by those fucking agents, you know, for years and years and years. They surrounded my house for 2 years straight till they ran me out of town. And I had to flee down to Hollywood, where I had people from my rock and roll career, right? And it's a different district, so the feds would stop at Bakersfield because that was the 4th district going south. And I had committed no marijuana crime in the 4th district, so they couldn't come after me. So I fled to Los Angeles for safety. And I got hit out by some amazing stars down there that, you know, they protected me. And I was safe, but I had to go away from home. And I had to stay away from all my friends and my family and Jack and Dennis and everybody, because I was a danger to my community. And this is what the federal government thought would stop the cannabis industry. They jostled me in the streets of my little hometown of Fairfax. Beautiful hippie little town, beautiful musicians, wonderful pot growers in the hills, a very progressive, wonderful society. And they go and bother my people. Hey, is Lynette Shaw, like, you know, selling pot in the streets of Fairfax? No. And then they jostle me and corner me. and say, look, lady, we'll go easy on you. Just give up, the garden and the supply chain, and who's the runners. We want the car description and the license plate of the runners. They actually did this to me. And I said, look, you're only going to get one woman. You got me. That's what you get. And then I won. So they didn't get me either, And now they can't get you. And I'm so relieved and I'm so happy. But it's only been a couple of years, and the war's not over yet. War's not over yet. But we're getting there. And you got to keep organizing. You got to get ready. I'd love to see somebody registering voters at an event like this. It's a 5-island opportunity to organize the voters. And when you have a voting block, then you find someone who wants to be a spokesperson, a candidate. And they can get at least out there and debate on your local television about hemp, about cannabis, about medical marijuana, the truth about what's really the truth. Truth will set us free. The truth set me free. It took 20 years. And you all don't have to do that now. You don't have to do any of that. And that's a relief. When I met Jack Herer, he was the most extraordinary public speaker that I've ever experienced in my entire life. I'm not easily impressed. I've been around a lot of big-time people. I always went for the big dogs, And Jack Herer was the most eloquent, intelligent, inspirational, amazing public speaker that I've ever seen in my life. And I was transfixed. And I'm not easily impressed, And I said, hi, I'm Lynette, and I got busted for pot. He gave me a book, Emperor Wears No Clothes. He autographed it for me. And I think that one got stolen, but I got others. And I read that book in 24 hours, and then I read it again, and then I read it 3 times in a row in 3 days. And I said, I'm not crazy, I'm right. Marijuana's good, And hemp will save the world. And we can save everybody. So I memorized his book, and when I went to jail for pot, I taught his book from memory to the women in jail. Because that was the first step of the revolution, is education. You talk story to each other, and you tell them the truth. Even when you're in jail, for the wrong reasons, for the wrong thing entirely, you educate around you. And people come out better for it, and they'll be there, and they'll also vote for you, even though they may not get public. They didn't know they'd get the right to vote back in California. Felons, once you get out of jail, you can vote. There's 37 states that allow felons to vote. So, this is something that everybody needs to know. If you know someone's there in jail, they do have the right to vote, probably. There's a pretty good chance, So, this is things that are very, very, very important, because if you want to take a step forward, and I can see the blockades here, this political blockades. You have to change that political blockade to a political ally. If you fight against them, they're going to think that you're violent or weird, or they can label you as something bad. But if you are a sophisticated voting bloc with a well-spoken candidate, you can get your message through to the masses much more easily and tenderly, and with your heart, so they can see you're telling the truth, whoever that spokesperson is. Now, I was trained by the best. I was trained by Dennis Perone. I was trained by Jack Herer to be speaking to you like I am today, because this is what my job always was, and that's why the feds, I think, really came after me, because they wanted to shut me up, and they did. But that is what my blessing is, too, is being a communicator and being the founding mother of the revolution. And to see this here in the middle of this field, wow. It's awesome. It's awesome. This is worth fighting 20 years for. This is worth fighting 100 years for. This is worth fighting every day of your life for, because we're going to be able to save the earth and feed our people and bring hemp products back into the world and have paper and fiber and fuel and oil, and we can get rid of the poison gas, and we can use industrial hemp oil. If you have a hemp oil spill, you know what happens? It's vegetable oil. Even when you squash it and you drop it in the river, it's vegetable oil. It floats on top and is not toxic. So it doesn't hurt the ducks, and it doesn't hurt the water, and it doesn't hurt the earth. And so that's really, we're here to save the earth and to save our people. And that's what I love about Hawaii so much, is the ohana. And we have a big, big ohana here. 5 islands worth of ohana. Wow. So I'm going to open up for questions. I know you probably have some questions. And I could pontificate and tell all these crazy stories for many hours. But if you all want to ask me a question, I can answer quite a few of them, I'm sure. So I'd like to open this up to a question from somebody.
Is there like any large marijuana farms on Maui? Because I know there's in California, there's quite a few. Are there any here?
That's not a question for me to answer, but does someone have that answer to the question?
There's one legal grower
One.
for Maui.
Okay.
So there's 8 licenses here in Hawaii to grow and distribute pot through, through medical dispensaries. With each of those 8 licenses, what I've heard is that you're allowed 2 business operation, storefronts.
Okay. That's fair.
So Maui grown, is it, or Maui?
Pono Life.
Yeah,
The one that's kind of like East Berlin before the wall fell. Yeah, that one.
Those guys are, what I've seen, such a professional and business that truly cares about wellness and health for people, which I really admire.
But they're so limited. We're so limited here on Maui as far as when you go into a dispensary in California, I get to learn exactly what do I need in a terpene, what do I need in the species of
We've had it legal since 1997
and
too.
I go in and I get exactly that dose of candy bar.
Yeah.
I know that's
It will
gonna
come.
let me sleep for 8 hours.
Yeah, it will come.
And it's so hard here to get that direct medicine.
Yeah.
And the prices also are very high for the aunties and uncles.
Way higher
So
than
I'd like
What
to
was it
mention.
the first time? $7.80 an ounce if you're buying by the eighth.
I'd like to
Oh.
mention that there is an organization called, and it's the website is Act Now. I believe it's .org, and they have a nurse practitioner that will answer the phone. You can go over your current prescription medication, what your ailments are, and they will give specific dosing and recommendations. So please, actnow.org. I'm personally working with them. We carry their hemp products on our site, but they've been in the legal cannabis industry for 10 years. They were one of the original Harborside brands for Prana, and they're doing stuff both in America and internationally. But they truly care. Actnow.org.
That's wonderful
Problem is we
information.
can't get the products here. So they're not legal. We have no one with artisanal products. We can't make an artisanal
So they're
Step by
gonna be
So
step.
now the collectives
Yeah.
are going to be legal.
They're gonna
We're
be able
hoping
to-
that the collectives here will be legal,
Yeah.
so we can bring about.
There is a lot of change happening
They'll be able to give you
everywhere.
dosing
Yeah.
so that when you do get, even if it's not their brand, they'll be able to assist with the amount of THC and CBD they could recommend.
Okay, and also I just told Doug something he didn't know. Maybe y'all didn't know since you've been here. But this morning, Tulsi Gabbard sponsored a comprehensive hemp legalization bill that includes looking into providing hemp food to low-cost meals for school children here in Hawaii, and to giving preference to the Hawaiian and small farmer and the native Hawaiians, and also it was an astonishing hemp legalization bill that covered many aspects that I would totally approve of, and I think it's a wonderful chess move on her part to get national news, but also her understanding of the hemp, the needs for the hemp to go forward. It's beyond revolution at this point. It's acceptance in society, and to the point where she actually said that this is good nutrition for school children. Well, hell yeah. Yes, David.
Are there any states that have done a good job of implementing regulations of?
My favorite Oregon, which was a free-for-all, and it ended up with a whole lot of excess pot. But there was such an acceptance across the board. It made medical very cheap, which was very helpful for the patients in the community. Also, there's been a lot of investment into Oregon. I have friends that came out of California and moved their operations so they could make isolate and CBD out of all the excess pot. Because once you get too high THC into a lab, you can remove the THC and come with CBD isolate. It's much more valuable than just the biomass. So I'm very fond of the sort of hands-off approach. Here's your license, and it was self-regulating in the communities with some jurisdictional legislation, and some they said go do your thing, which I thought was interesting. That's Oregon too. You know, Washington killed the collective system. California killed the collective system. Denver has held on to the collective system, but they are very expensive there because of all the taxation. But they were much. Now Nevada has done a pretty good job with licensing and having public access for recreational, and they have reciprocity. They will acknowledge someone's medical card from another state. We don't have that in California, and that to me is insane. But gee, I'm well. I'm another state, right? So it's so far Oregon and Nevada have the best rules on the mainland. Now they're working in Maine. I hear I was looking at some legislation from Maine. It looked pretty good. Mexico is going to legalize across the board on April 30th, 2020. The Mexican Supreme Court has declared that the prohibition against cannabis and hemp is unconstitutional, and they have to legalize it for all purposes. Now the deadline is April 30th, 2020. So that means we got Canada and we got Mexico. We get the squeeze on the United States, you know? We're looking good here. But it's going to take a lot of work, and I think that's also part of my message, is that this is you're starting to get organized, and it looks hella good, you know? And we're starting to see real education and book guys here and everything. I got to write a book, I know, but now that I'm safe, I can think about that, because I was not safe for a long time, and it was very scary, and I carried a 100-pound pit bull with me 24/7, so I was safe. I could sleep anywhere or park anywhere, because I had my big bad Harley boy with me, you know. I was on the lam for 5 years, and it wasn't any fun. And I couldn't see my friends, and I couldn't see my family, and I couldn't see anybody who really cared, and that I cared about. And that was the worst part, I think, of the torture that I went through in the name of the drug war, was the complete excommunication from my society. And it was because I was a danger to the people that I love and I believe in and I tutored and I wanted to protect. So the only way I could protect you was to not be with you. And that was the cruelest part of the persecution. But I beat him. And I beat him good. And I beat him across the nation. And now, gee, we got the hemp bill. We got the farm bill through. That's really good. You know, I beat him in 2017. In 2018, they said, oh, let's just try this hemp thing after all. Well, I'm really glad that Kentucky was suffering so badly that Mitch McConnell did something. Kentucky had the worst opioid overdose and the lowest income per capita in the nation. 100 and some years ago, they were the #1 income in the nation because they were the #1 producer of hemp for the world. Just Kentucky produced more hemp than anywhere in the world 100 years ago. And they were the richest state. So, gee, we got a lot of land here, don't we? I think that Maui and the Hawaiian Islands could become a very good enterprise for everybody in saving the earth. And, you know, providing low-cost, nutritious food for school children. Thank you, Tulsi Gabbard. I've suddenly, swung around and took a look at her more carefully. You know? That's quite a wonderful thing that she's done. And it was everywhere. I get lots of news feeds. I'm a consultant. I have to know everything, supposedly, right? I'm the godmother of ganja, the queen of green. Yeah. So I get news feeds every morning. And I woke up, I was just telling David this, and I woke up and I was just looking at my iPhone, looking at, what? Wait, what? And I woke up, and I said, I think that's also, she knows you guys are doing this. She knows you guys have done this. She knows. You're getting some attention at a high political level. And y'all didn't even know you did that, now did you? That's very, very, very indicative of where I think I would like to see this go, is to organize a little more politically. I think that you've spoken out You have stood up, and you've also been reasonable. You know, we couldn't be so reasonable 20 years ago in San Francisco when people were dying in the streets of San Francisco. You know, they were actually putting dying people this big in jail in San Francisco and Marin County for 2 joints. For 2 fucking joints. And they were this big and they were dying, and they put them in jail in San Francisco. So we had to like bring hundreds of protesters in front of the jail. And we had to do that for every single case until they quit doing it. You know? And that's what we had to do 20 years ago. And that's why 215 was birthed. We had to go up to Sacramento and bring forward bills. And how we got them to not shut their doors in our face is Dennis Prone sent me in. I was in charge of the women. And I'm a nice girl. Hi, we have an appointment. I have some of my friends here that would like to talk to. And in would march or hobble or wheelchair in the most sad, sick women that you've ever seen in your life. Parts of people. And we make the senator cry. And then they'd vote for us. So we'd go door by door, tier by tier, until we got a resolution, we got a Senate bill and an Assembly bill, 3 years in a row, door by door, with these. Well, Dennis called it the unfortunate dog and pony show. And that's how we got the first votes in Sacramento. And I hope that we never have to do that again, but that's what it takes. That's what it takes. You have to have them hear you in their hearts and make them cry. Was that dirty pool? No, it was the truth. What do you mean put this half a human in jail for 2 joints? How can you do this when it's the only thing they can tolerate? When it's the only thing, they're allergic to all the chemicals that they've been giving them, and when they only use pot, they get better. So what are you doing? And that's how we got to the point where we had the initiative. And I was part of the initiative committee for 215. We developed this. There's about 30 of us that were there every day for weeks on end. Dennis was the leader, of course, and we all developed the Prop 215. He had the final wording and filed it, and we campaigned all over the state, and we won against all odds, and nobody believed that we legalized pot. Nobody believed it. They didn't even fight us. They spent 30 grand with a couple lame-ass ads and some plane tickets for 5 presidents to come to California and say, we're the former presidents of the United States and you should vote against Prop 215. They did. That didn't work. You know, that didn't work. We won. And then I got my license, and I thought, hey, everybody's going to have a license. No. So now that everybody is getting a license, it's much better. They have too many rules, and it's stupid, but it's better than not. What's the alternative? There's not enough access, but there's some access. The other alternative is you go to jail for 2 joints. So I'll take some access, and it'll get better later, because it does. You know, 20 years ago, I was the only pot club in the nation with a license. I had people standing out the door, driving hours because they wanted something safe and guaranteed and legal. You know, they don't have to stand out the door and around the corner anymore, do they? So there's something there that helps. You know, and that's one of my specialties is I match people's illnesses with strains. And I've been pretty good with this. And that's another one of the books that I have to write about is what strains that I discovered over my many years of healing people that had seemed to help distinctly for certain conditions. And I had great success with this, so I'm lucky and I'm also observant. And I've handled thousands and thousands of patient cases. And I'm not sure why I was sent from above or something to do this. I don't know. It's a divine mission, I guess. Because once I found Jack, there was no other star in the sky. There was one. I was heading towards this one place, and that goal was to free the plant and free the people. You know? Yeah. Thank you.
Lynette, can you tell everybody what your nickname is and why?
Which one?
The one on your wrist.
Oh, okay. How I was so attracted to the medical marijuana movement, which is me, because I get emotional. I was a professional vocalist, so I'm singing here Saturday night. because I'm a singingist, and I know hundreds and hundreds of songs. And I was a pro for many years, and I went down to Hollywood, and I was slinging pot to the stars, and I was singing in the studios, and I was a union musician, and I can read and write music as easily as English. I'm gifted. So I met John Belushi behind the rainbow with a bag of pot one night, and I sold him some pot that was set up by the boys. And I tried to give him change for the purchase. He goes, "You're giving me change?" And I said, "That's because I'm your girl. I'm a singer." He says, "You sing the blues?" I go, "Yeah." He says, "Okay, I'll send Blue Lou and tell the boys that you're buying drinks on Jake." So we went in and bought some drinks on Jake. Blue Lou Marini shows up and takes me down to the jam, and we tear down the place. He's a wonderful sax player. And I was in my early 20s, and I was just having a ball. So it brings me the next night for the Pro Blues Jam, and it was the real Blues Brothers band from the first movie. And they got up on stage, and we tore the fucking place down. And I ended up singing with the Blues Brothers band for 4 months, and they voted me into the band. I was going to be in the Blues Brothers band. And my tattoo says Bluesetta, because I was baby sister Bluesetta Blues. And then John overdosed. And I had been sent on a mission to go get pot for him to try to get him off the hard shit. And my guy got busted by the DEA that I got followed at that point. And I didn't make it back. And I'm sure that if he had had some medical marijuana, he would not have died. And I was horribly guilty, and I was horribly traumatized, and everybody blamed me for his overdose. I was the mystery girl they wrote about. And I split. I had to go hide for a really long time then, too. And I came back up to Marin County, north of San Francisco, and I joined a classical orchestra and played with a symphony for 20 years instead of being a rock star. And when I finally remembered about all this stuff, remember I mentioned earlier that I ran in 2006 for the Libertarian Party and Willie endorsed me and stuff. I went back to Hollywood for the first time in 20 years, and I found my old manager who'd introduced me to John. And he said, "Lynette, I know that you were in shock, but all this stuff happened to you, and you disappeared." He says, "You're Bluesetta." I said, "What?" And then I remembered every single thing. And I started singing pop music again. So I had the Bluesetta band down in Hollywood. And then when the feds attacked me, I quit singing and came and fought like hell for the club. And then I had to go on the lam. So I went back to Hollywood as a fugitive and stayed in the underground for quite a while. And I was, I met a lot of very interesting people, but I wasn't in my place. You know, I wasn't in my home, I wasn't in my business, I wasn't with my people. I was with big stars, but I wasn't with y'all. You know? I'm from the country, you know? I grew up in ranch country out in the Delta. I know how to pick up a shovel and dig. I can ride a horse. I can skip a speedboat there out in the, you know, I'm a country kind of person. I was drawn to this incredible path that has led me here to you guys. And I'm just blessed and honored. And I'm excited. And I got a whole bunch of ideas as usual. And any more questions? Any questions, you guys?
Why are you expanding into hemp now?
I always was into hemp. It was a dual track. When I met Jack first, and I got involved with his hemp message and the hemp petitioning, and he sent me to Dennis because Dennis needed help, and I was reliable. So I actually started off as a hemp educator, but then I was sent to work with Dennis, and Dennis and the mission took over, and all those sick people that were they just absolutely needed us. And they needed someone who was reasonably well. I have post-traumatic stress, but I was not dying from AIDS. And so they needed someone who was stable, who could be reliable to distribute medical marijuana to the critically ill. So I got hired into the first cannabis club in history. And I was from the first staff of the first cannabis club because that took precedent over the hemp message. And that's why I ended up with Dennis and developing 215 and doing all that. But then he sent me down to Jack to train petitioners. Then I come back up and help with all the sick people. And then we go lobby in Sacramento. And then they sent me back down to Van Nuys so I could man the office while they were out on the beach in Venice, you know, teaching about hemp. So I was sort of dual tracking for quite a while, but then after 215 passed and we won, and I got this license, and then I had to go to court 2-3 times a week for years. Are you kidding? I had to give up working with Jack because it was too much, and also I had agents. I had agents all the time. They were off and on at that point, and then for the last 5 years they were constant. And they wasted millions on me. You know, I'm a girl from the country that came up with a couple of bright ideas, and I'm kind of fearless because I used to be a rock singer. So what was so important that they spent millions of dollars stopping me and doing horrendous, unconstitutional violations of my rights to shut me up? What did I do? Told the truth effectively. You know, it took a lot for them to scare me. I'm from the country. I don't believe in, you know, liars and bullshitters and manipulators, and I calls them as I sees them. And you can't really lie to me for very long because I know what a tell is. So when an agent would come up and say some bullshit, I said, look, you're an agent. Leave me alone. You know, you don't scare me. In fact, here's my 100-pound pit bull. He don't like you very much. Very handy. He had a great stance. He'd do this and just look. And it was excellent. They quit hassling me after a while because Harley started to not like them very much. And he would warn me too when there's an agent following me. It was very interesting trait that he developed just out of the circumstances. Pit bulls are really smart. I love them. I got 3 now. I lost Harley to old age. And I have a daytime guard and a nighttime guard and an in-the-house guard, so I feel safe. And that's what I have to do every night, you know, unless I'm in a very beautiful place like Maui, hiding up on Haleakala somewhere, or maybe out in Lahaina on the beach. You know, I'm safe. And they can't follow me anymore. And they can't bother you guys at all. They're not. You know, if you have DEA agents or running around trying to bug somebody, you don't see them anymore. They don't do that because of the Shaw decision. And so many times they call it the Breyer decision. This is Judge Breyer. I'm Lynette Shaw. And the Shaw decision is what stopped him. And I had to fight him to a bloody standstill and be terrorized, but it was worth it. We have a wonderful start here. This is a peaceful thing. It's not a bloody revolution. This is a peaceful revolution that makes us more dangerous because you can't object to peace and love. You just have to try to shove it in the corner or say you're bad or, you know, or lie about cannabis to put you in jail because you're nice. You know, pop people are nice. You know, you don't see them like pound each other with beer bottles or whatever. You know, alcohol. I don't use much alcohol. I'm not an alcohol person, but some people tend to have fights on alcohol. You know, you don't see at a pot festival. You don't see like fights going on. Mostly they fall asleep. You take too much pot and fall asleep, and you wake up hungry. You know, and that's good for the vendors. So I think that because we have been good, and because we have not responded with violence, there's been less and less objection to our counterculture. We've been absorbed into society a little bit. People wearing flowers and tie-dye where it used to be like a big signal, now it's something in Macy's. You know, so we've won on many levels. We've won culturally too. You know, there's and what time is it?
You've got maybe about another 20 minutes.
20 more minutes.
But can you share, actually no, 10 minutes.
Okay.
Can you share about the male strains and ailments, things like that?
Okay, I was given hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds of pot during the Prohibition because I was working directly with the AIDS patients and the breast cancer too. Marin County to this day is the #1 for breast cancer cases per capita in the nation, and we do not know why. It's a very wealthy county. It's all organic and a lot of vegetarians and healthful lifestyle and clean air and no polluting industries. And we have the highest breast cancer rate in the nation. And they've been studying it and they don't know why. It might We don't know. So when I first got involved with Dennis and Jack was always supporting Dennis was always supporting Jack, so they kept me bouncing around. But when I realized we had an epidemic in my home county of Marin County, I was going over to San Francisco and helping all the patients there, and then I was running around all over the place in Marin because we had an epidemic and a crisis. You know, we were number 2 in the nation for HIV for population, number 1 in the nation for breast cancer. So when I became aware of this, and I'm an active social activist, what could I do but start running around Marin County bringing medical marijuana to the critically ill and the suffering? So Dennis, after we won, Dennis sponsored my club illegally in Fairfax before we won. I was one of the 5 that was open before it was legal because of the epidemic and the medical necessity. And it was a critical point for medicine. It was a critical point for social awareness. And it was very scary, but it wasn't, because it was the right thing to do. And during that time period, the growers would donate hundreds of pounds of like leaf and hundreds of pounds of male plants, because they said, I think you can do something with this, Lynette. And it's true. So we were grinding it up. We were making juice out of it. We were making extracts. We were making witch hazel extract, what I did. And what I found by having all this stuff, even though it was illegal, you know, and I could get busted for having so many pounds of pot just surrounding me, right? We were in there because it's for the patients. And what I've discovered is that the male plants, when you put the stem and the leaf of the male plant and the stem and leaf of the female plant into witch hazel, that is what stops swelling, internally and externally, and it's a topical application. And this swelling thing didn't happen without the male plant. And so I think this is a significant understanding that the male plant is medically useful. And we need to analyze what's in there, because if you reduce swelling that effectively with something that they just burn up because they don't know what to do with it, then we're looking at a whole new area to find medicine from this wonderful plant. So it also, you could also, there's one, I think it reminded me, because I found out that you can actually boil the male plant and you get enough out of it to stop nausea, but it doesn't work with female plants. Because you just put female plants into water, nothing happens. But it kind of tastes good, but you don't have any medical effect. But if you put the male plant and boil it and make a tea out of it, it settles nausea instantly. And so that was another interesting discovery, because we had to. So I think there's much more value in the male plants than is known at this time, or this knowledge has been lost. And we need to look into all this. So the male plants are not all bad. Yes, actually, my friend Darcy from Hemp Ease makes a medicine out of the roots only that is remarkable for pain relief and swelling. So I had 20 plants in my backyard illegally in California, and I had cut up all the roots and just send them to her when I get back, you know. So every inch of the plant is useful. And her discovery of the roots, and she's been doing Hemp Ease for many, many years, and it's very good. My cousin had spurs on his feet and put on his feet, and he just felt much better, and it definitely reduced the pain and swelling out of the root. So I've never made that, but she makes a wonderful product. And now she's able to ship it because of the 2018 Farm Bill. So hopefully we can get some over here, because it's a really good formula.
We have a really tough political climate here in which to try and legalize marijuana. We started out with some decent legislation in our state capitol last year, and the same people who like to keep it within that category of limited licenses, not everyone can participate,
yes,
not everyone can grow, put themselves back on it and then declare they've legalized marijuana in Maui. I saw those articles come out and I laughed my ass off.
Yeah.
So getting a political movement going through these people that just literally come in and gazump it.
Right.
So right now it's just 3 grams are legal.
Yes.
That's it. And they're going to take away our right to grow in 3 years.
Yeah, that has to be
and
not
the one
happening.
grower that's allowed to grow is also the gentleman that does the green harvest and takes away illegal crops on Maui.
Yes.
So I mean, this type of
Right.
atmosphere.
This is why I was the political organizing needs to happen.
So what
And-
in that situation? I mean, this is year after year.
Yes.
We're suppressed in that capacity.
Yes,
We're
of
not
course.
a home rule state.
Yeah.
We can't make our own decision here, really. Ultimately, it feels.
Yeah, I mean, each state has their own representatives, and everybody votes in their local elections, supposedly. So starting at ground zero, you have to register people to vote, in or out of a party, and also make them aware how important their vote is. Because when you have a candidate, when a voter bloc can put that candidate in, we put in a pot-smoking district attorney for the city of San Francisco because we shamed them for putting our sick people in jail for 2 joints. And this was so unpopular, and we had an eloquent attorney take it on in smoking pot in public with us. And he won, and he was a district attorney there for 8 years. We got reelected. He was a wonderful district attorney, and the persecutions and prosecutions of the sick stopped. It stopped. So we had the right candidate who had the right power. You know, you don't necessarily need the governor if you have the attorney general, you know. So I think that's one thing that I would like to see strengthened here is there's no voter registration going on. And here's a 5-state opportunity to register voters and make people aware how important it is for you to get your neighbors to register to vote. And meet, you know, every once in a while, at least once a quarter, and have a meeting. And be the hemp-friendly, there's one we had a non-smoker for pot, you know? And hemp supporters, ask me about hemp, you know? You can have the ask me about hemp voting block. And it's actually much more strong and effective because, like you say, these people did that. Those people were put in position by voters. And you can put somebody else, you can fire those guys and hire the guys that will do the right thing, but you have to organize. And I know it seems like a pain in the ass. And I know I ran for office and I don't want to do that myself. It's not my, you know, it was not what made me happy. But someone will be a well-spoken representative. Some, you know, as long as you are a sincere group, you get your people together and you go out and get registered voters. Say, we want to change things. We want to have legal hemp. Like Tulsi Gabbard just submitted this marvelous hemp legalization bill that looks at all aspects of the industry and looks at everything in a sensible light, like she must have read Jack's book. Y'all did a good job, you know? I was astonished this morning. You know, I woke straight up. And then I had to be quiet because my best girlfriend there was like sleeping in the room next door. I don't want to start going yip yip or anything, right? It's too early in the morning to go yip yip. But I was going yip yip in here. So, she's got that was a hell of a bill. And I don't know if it may have some legs too. And also woke me up to see who she is. And I think that's a smart move on her part. You know, 'cause she's in an interesting position right now, and is at least I think bringing it forward in a public world forum that she has right now as a presidential candidate is extremely significant for your organization here in Hawaii.
You know, in your experience in politics, if we were to push a candidate forward, what position should we aim for? What would be most impactful for the local government and be able to, you know, push the agenda?
Well, keeping in mind that it depends on where you live. If you're an incorporated town, it's the town council or city council that is the boss of the police and all the public workers. If you're in the county, then it's the board of supervisor that's the boss of the sheriff and the public policies. So it depends on where your voter block is if you're in a incorporated town.
We have a different arrangement in Hawaii.
Oh,
There's only one county.
There's only one county and there's no incorporated.
We're not incorporated.
There's no incorporations anywhere in any.
Not a home state.
So it's one county, one board of supervisors.
And the person we need to get rid of, Lauren Rago and I just looked at each other and said the name at the same time. It's Roz Baker.
Okay.
Senator Roz Baker needs to leave.
And he's a senator from Maui. She is the senator from Maui.
So like the problem is, right, what we don't want is to get that person out and then like the only options are like what our, you know, presidential election was previously, like
Right.
the bad or the worst.
That's why I'm
We have
encouraging.
several people that want to run against Roz that are very wonderful. They've been politicians here for a long time. They've been candidates. Roz has had the machine behind her, including money from Monsanto. So that is who we need to unseat. Who's safe, and Lauren Rego and everybody else determines is that person to go against Roz is going to be that person.
And that's why I'm encouraging having a meeting every couple months of the registered voters and people who are out registering voters. And like you, when I was in college, I had a job where I got $1 a Democrat to register voters. And we registered 800 voters a month. You know? And we also talked to them all about legalizing pot. This is a while ago. You know, I've been in college for 30 years. It really was an outreach, and it made me a little money, but I mean, the people who, after we registered the vote, they want to know, gee, what can I do to help you? We'll register more voters that believe in this. And it's exponential. You get one person that is talking to you, they talk to 10 people, and those 10 people talk to 10 people. And you have, even though they're not jumping around and carrying signs, they'll vote for you in that secret ballot. They'll vote for you, and they'll vote this person out, Roz, and they'll put in a candidate that is talking to them the way that you talk to them. You know? And that's also what brings the Ohana together. Is this is an opportunity. I mean, to me, this is just an amazing meeting here. You know, this is an opportunity for us all to educate each other. And I really didn't know there was not incorporated towns. We had them. California is so funny. We have 58 counties and thousands of towns with their own town or city council. You know, and so it's very local. We have our own police department. The sheriff doesn't come in. The town police will come. You know, it's and they like me. You know, we have a contract with our town. Because I have a licensed dispensary, that's a contract. So we have a contract with the town, and so the police are contracted to protect us and our marijuana. And that's how. So if you have a license from the county, that means that the sheriff is obligated to protect your business. So this is also why I wanted to have licensing, so that we wouldn't be afraid anymore, and we wouldn't have to deal with thugs in the black market. Now, not everybody's a thug, but there was definitely a lot of them. You know, and I don't like that, and I'm a nice person. My mom was a Quaker. I was raised better, and my dad, IRS federal agent. So, so I'm tough as nails, baby. But my heart beats big love. You know? Okay, well, I'm Lynette Shaw. I'm very happy to be here. I'll be here for the weekend. I got 11:30 tomorrow and 11:30 on Sunday. And you can ask me anything you want. You know, see me wandering around and say, hey, Lynette, I got a question for you. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you got. All right? Thank you so much. Mahalo.